Silent Hill was one of the very best games released on the original PlayStation, and I thought it would be fitting to discuss it in further detail considering a brand new reimagining of the franchise is currently underway at Konami with both Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro at the helm. Silent Hill is remarkable for getting inside your head and staying there. It features an incredible soundtrack, solid gameplay, and brain-twisting puzzles. If you've never experienced it before, there's no better time to do so than right now. Take my advice though, lock yourself in a room somewhere, close out all the lights, and crank up the volume. You want to be creeped out while playing, because it actually makes you feel like the protagonist, Harry, who has just lost his daughter in the bizarre, fog-filled town of Silent Hill. One note to make is that the video you're watching here is entirely made up of the very earliest portions of the game.
Stop.
Now I did this on purpose so as not to spoil any of the settings or environments for those that have never played the game before, and trust me, you're going to want to experience the whole game for yourself. Before continuing, did you guys know that Silent Hill was heavily censored before it was released outside of Japan? Seriously, it's true. The North American version, which usually doesn't get too censored, had a lot of different elements change, but the biggest being the childlike creatures that attack you with knives were tweaked so they didn't look quite as close to children, and in Europe, even more of the game was censored. Okay, enough about that. Let's jump right on into the game. So what makes it so great, and what makes it hold up so well all these years later after its release? Well, for one thing, it's the atmosphere. In fact, it's all about the atmosphere. Silent Hill operates on an entirely different playing field than something like the original Resident Evil, because it doesn't want to simply scare you with cheap tricks. It wants to mess with your mind. This is a psychological thriller, much more so than an action game, and it succeeds tremendously well. From the eerie sound effects to the radio, which omits static noises the closer you get to enemies, the game is always reminding you that, you know what, you're not safe and you're not alone. From traveling through a foggy town to the darkest depths of your imagination, Silent Hill challenges you in ways very few other PlayStation 1 games did. And it's one of the reasons why so much of the game has held up superbly. The story is also one of the game's biggest strengths. It starts off with Harry and his daughter Cheryl making their way to the small town of Silent Hill to spend some quality time together on a little vacation. While driving, a woman suddenly appears in front of them, and Harry swerves the car, it rolls, and well, when he awakens, Cheryl appears to be out in front of him through this thick fog that has enveloped the whole town. As he slowly makes his way towards her, calling out, "Cheryl!" she walks off. Now, why would she do that? And why would she run away from her father? Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Silent Hill. Something else that I really like with this game is the music. The music and sound effects are truly what really pushed this game over the edge. Akira Yamaoka did a wonderful job, and to think, he wasn't even the original composer. He was brought on after the original departed the project. With incredible industrial tunes, creepy melodies, and countless memorable sounds, Silent Hill's soundtrack is considered a modern-day classic, and for good reason. It is. While dated by today's standards, the graphics do their job well enough. The town is completely covered in fog, but that's okay as it allows details in the buildings and other areas of the environment to shine through. The grain effect also works extremely well in sort of making players feel uneasy. If you've got a weak stomach, I also encourage you to skip this one out as it's extremely gory and there are plenty of disturbing images. One of the more interesting aspects of Silent Hill are the game's multiple endings. Now, I'm not going to give any of them away here, but I will tell you that they do give you an incentive to keep coming back and trying things just a little bit differently each time you play the game. Silent Hill also features dynamic camera angles that work extremely well. Unlike Resident Evil, the camera swoops and twists and turns as you make your way through alleys, corridors, and rooms. It can even be a little bit disorientating at times, and you know what? That was the whole point. The FMV cutscenes are also gorgeous, and they were back then too, and sure, they're a little bit pixelated, but they do hold up quite well today. Some aspects that haven't aged quite as well are the tank controls. Let's be honest, you're either gonna love them, hate them, or get used to them. It's one of these things. For me, I've never really had a problem with them, and in fact I find they heighten the game's stress level or its tension because you don't really have full control over your character. The combat system is much like the controls. It feels mostly dated. Sure, it works, you can shoot enemies, you can hit them with a pipe, things like that, but because the camera angle is dynamic, oftentimes you won't see enemies before they're attacking you, and that's a little bit of a problem. The worst aspect, I think, that kind of hinders some of the game is the voice acting. There's just no sign of emotion whatsoever, and I think if they couldn't get good voice actors, they really should have just left this for text-only dialogue, but maybe you won't have a problem with it. I just find it a little too muted for me. So overall, Silent Hill does show its age in some regards, but it still remains a chilling experience. The thought of losing one's daughter in a creepy town is enough to put you on edge, but having a childlike creature attack you with knives, limited lighting, that eerie sound coming from the radio, and just the creepy setting help push you over the edge. And that's what makes Silent Hill so special. Hopefully the developers of the reboot remember that. Cheap scares don't stay with you months or even years after you finish a game. It has to take control of you and really freak you out, and based solely on what I played with the interactive PT teaser, Kojima-san and Del Toro appear to be on the right track. But if you're curious to see where this legacy of evil started, I highly encourage you to check out Silent Hill on the PlayStation 1. And yes, it's available on the PlayStation Network, and I also encourage you to go check out ProjectCoe.com for the full written review.
Do